Story 1. The Camping Trip. I still remember the last weekend of August like it happened yesterday. Summer was fading, the nights were getting cooler, and my friends and I wanted one last adventure before school started again. We decided to go camping near a lake that sat on the edge of town, a place where people whispered about drownings and strange lights in the woods. I didn't think much of the rumors. I grew up hearing adults warn us kids not to swim there after dark, but honestly, it just sounded like the kind of thing parents made up to keep us out of trouble. At 17, I felt invincible. Nothing bad ever really happened to me. Until that night. There were 4 of us. Me, my best friend Alex, his girlfriend Jenna, and her cousin Mark. We packed up a couple tents, some cheap beer we'd managed to get our hands on, and a Bluetooth speaker for music. The drive out there was filled with laughter, the kind you only get on the last night of summer when you're young and convinced life will never change. The sun was already setting when we pulled up to the trailhead. The lake wasn't far from the dirt road, maybe a 15-minute walk. By the time we reached it, the sky was painted with streaks of orange and purple. The water looked calm, like a sheet of glass reflecting the colors of the sky. We set up camp on a small clearing just a few feet from the shoreline. Jenna spread out a blanket, Alex worked on pitching the tent, and Mark and I gathered some wood for a fire. Everything felt perfect. When darkness fell, we lit the fire and sat around drinking. The woods were quiet, almost too quiet, except for the occasional ripple of water against the shore. The stars came out, brighter than I'd ever seen them in town. I remember thinking it felt like the perfect way to end the summer. But then, things started to feel off. It began with Jenna. She was laughing one minute, and the next, her face went pale as she stared out.
"What's wrong with you?" I asked.
"Do you hear that?" he said. We all stopped talking and listened. At first there was nothing, just the crackle of the fire and the faint lapping of water. Then I heard it, faint footsteps crunching leaves somewhere in the trees. Alex stood up and shined his phone flashlight into the woods, but the beam revealed nothing, just trees and shadows. "Probably a deer," Alex said, sitting back down. But his voice didn't sound convincing, not even to himself. The air grew heavier, colder. The fire seemed smaller somehow, like the darkness was swallowing it up. And then we all heard it, clear as day. A splash. Something had entered the water. We jumped up and aimed our lights toward the lake. The surface rippled violently, like someone was swimming. But there was no one there. No heads, no arms cutting through the water. Just waves spreading out, growing larger. "Okay, that's weird," I muttered, my chest tightening. Then came the voice. It was soft, almost like a child's, carrying across the water. "Help me." Jenna screamed and grabbed Alex's arm. The rest of us froze, our hearts pounding in unison. The voice came again, this time closer. "Please, help me." Every instinct in me screamed to run, but Alex, being the stubborn idiot he always was, grabbed a stick from the fire and marched down toward the edge of the water. "Who's out there?" he yelled. "If this is a prank, it's not funny." The ripples grew larger, racing toward shore. Alex stopped, holding the stick like a weapon. Then, out of nowhere, the water went completely still. The voice stopped. The woods went silent. And then something rose from the lake. At first I thought it was a person, but the shape was all wrong. It was too tall, its limbs too long. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side. Story 2. The Last Summer House Party. I was 18 when it happened. just a few weeks before I left for college. It was the end of August, that weird time when the days are still hot but the nights start to feel like fall. Everyone in our small town was restless, knowing summer was almost over. That's when I got invited to the party. Every year, someone threw a big end-of-summer party. This time, it was at a farmhouse just outside town. I didn't know the owners. It was some older kid's cousin or something. But the place was huge and isolated. Word spread fast, and by the time I arrived, the driveway was already packed with cars. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the energy. Music blasted from giant speakers, lights flashed, and people crowded every room. The air smelled like sweat, alcohol, and smoke. It was chaos, but the kind of chaos that made you feel alive. I found some friends and we made our way to the kitchen for drinks. Everyone was laughing, shouting, taking pictures. It felt like the last wild night before real life began. But then, I noticed something. Through the crowd, I saw a man standing by the sliding glass doors that led to the backyard. He wasn't dancing, wasn't talking. He just stood there, staring into the house. At first, I thought he was with someone. But the longer I watched, the more I realized nobody else seemed to notice him. He didn't look like he belonged. He wasn't dressed like the rest of us, just dark jeans and a plain hoodie, the hood pulled low over his face. When his eyes met mine, a chill ran through me. I quickly looked away. A few minutes later, when I glanced back, he was gone. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he went outside to smoke. Maybe he was just some random friend of a friend. But the unease lingered. Around midnight, the party moved outside. People were dancing and I wish I hadn't. The gravel driveway was quiet compared to the noise of the party. My car was parked near the end, where the trees pressed close to the road. The night was darker out there, the music faint in the distance. As I fumbled with my keys, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching on gravel. I turned, my heart hammering. There he was, the hooded man, standing not 10 feet away. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He didn't answer. He just tilted his head, like he was studying me. I backed toward my car, trying to unlock it with trembling hands. The footsteps grew louder. He was coming closer. "Stay away from me," I shouted. Finally, the lock clicked. I yanked the door open and jumped inside, slamming it shut. My hands shook so badly I could barely start the engine. When I looked up, he was right there, standing in front of my car, his hood still shadowing his face. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them on me. Cold. Empty. Then, without warning, he slowly raised his hand and pointed directly at me. That was enough. I floored the gas, swerving around him and tearing down the road. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, the driveway was empty. He was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't tell anyone either. What could I say? That some stranger at a party scared me? Nobody would believe me. But a week later, just before I left for college, I heard something on the news. A farmhouse about 30 miles away had been broken into. The family was found dead. The only description of the suspect? A man. Story 3. The road trip before college. It was the very last weekend before college. I had just turned 19, and instead of spending those final days at home, I decided to take a short road trip. Nothing big, just a 2-day drive to clear my head, to feel the freedom of the open road before my life completely changed. I didn't tell many people, just packed a bag, filled the tank, and started driving south. The weather was perfect. Sunny skies during the day, crisp, cool air at night. The highway stretched out in front of me like it went on forever. For the first time all summer, I felt calm. But by the second night, everything changed. I had been driving for hours and the sun was setting behind the trees. I knew I needed to find a place to sleep. I didn't want to spend the night in the car, so when I saw an old roadside motel with a flickering neon sign, I pulled in. It wasn't fancy, just a row of one-story rooms with peeling paint and a buzzing light above the office. But it was cheap, and that's all I cared about. The man behind the counter barely looked at me when I checked in. He handed me a key without saying much, just mumbled the room number and went back to watching his little TV. Something about him felt off. His skin was pale, his eyes too dark, like he hadn't slept in days. But I brushed it off. People like that work night shifts all the time. My room was at the far end of the lot. The carpet smelled musty, the bed creaked when I sat on it, and the bathroom light flickered. I thought about leaving, but I was too tired. I locked the door, double-checked the window, and tried to settle in. Around midnight, I woke up to a sound. At first, I thought it was just the pipes or someone in the next room. But then I heard it again. Soft, deliberate footsteps right outside my door. I froze. The footsteps stopped, then slowly moved toward my window. I held my breath, staring at the thin curtain as a shadow passed across it. Someone was out there. My phone was on the nightstand, but I was too scared to move. I just lay there, heart pounding, listening. The shadow lingered for what felt like forever, then disappeared. The footsteps faded. Eventually, I convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe another guest walking to their car. I forced myself back to sleep, but at 3:17 a.m. I woke up again. This time the sound was inside. I sat up slowly, every muscle in my body tense. The room was pitch black, but I could hear breathing. Not mine, someone else's. Slow. For a split second, the beam caught something. A man crouched in the corner, his face pale, his eyes wide and unblinking. I screamed and dropped the phone. By the time I scrambled for the light again, the corner was empty. The door was still locked, the window still shut. There was no way anyone could have gotten in, but I saw him. I know I did. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. As soon as the sun came up, I grabbed my stuff and got out of there as fast as I could. When I checked out, the man at the front desk gave me a strange look, almost like he knew. Like he was waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I just left. A few weeks later, after I'd started college, I saw a news article online. That motel had been shut down. Police found out the manager had been letting his brother, a man with severe mental issues, live in the crawl spaces above the rooms. Guests reported strange noises, missing belongings, and worse. Some even said they woke up to find him standing in their rooms at night. I never told anyone about my stay there, not until now. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed in my dorm, I swear I can still hear it. That slow, heavy breathing in the dark. And I wonder if he ever really left that room, or if some part of him followed me.